welcome to another episode of the Create Smarter podcast. I'm Marisa. I am here with Brooklyn and Phil.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about still photography in creative ways that you can use that content. Welcome in. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Of course. So obviously we're mostly a video production company, but we've also kind of gone into the world of photo work as well. So Phil, can you kind of talk about how that has changed in our work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I've done photo work for a long time personally, and I think doing events and doing video production at events, we kind of just naturally saw that that was something that a lot of our clients wanted and started asking us for, and it's something that, like I mentioned, I had done and you both have experience with as well. So like a chunk of our company in-house has done that work and can do that work for clients. So in addition to occasionally outsourcing it for events to, other really good skilled photographers, as freelancers, we are just taking on more of that work in-house because I think it's something that, we're really good at here. Our team who does it internally, we have a lot of freelancers as well who do a really good job. And it just fits in really naturally with what we do at events specifically, but also, at other types of shoots like I know you're going to talk about here today.
Yeah. So kind of going off that, what kind of photos, talk about like what kind of events we do photography work for. I know all three of us have done photos at events, but some of those have been kind of different and creative. I don't know if Brooklyn, you want to take a stab?
So we've done like a number, like for me, like my first time doing photos was actually at the JAF Media Day, I think. That was the first time I did. So like media days and stuff like that. And we've done like a couple of those, BU, again, JF, Emerson and stuff like that. We've done conferences, so both you and I, different times we went to, there was IHS and there was Vinexpo and stuff like that. So it's the capturing of just all things going on within those things. So those types of things. And then just like bigger events, we had the Black Maternal Health. So that was more of a, I don't know the word for it, like
it's like a summit.
It's a conference.
Summit, yeah, that type of thing. So a lot of that was, again, there was so much going on within that, like different, there's only two different like rooms technically, but like speaker capture and things like that, audience and stuff like that. And then another one we will be doing is STAT. So that is in a newer type of location, I'd say, and that one is more of a awards type thing, so awards and things like that as well.
Yeah, I think the ones you didn't mention was just like a corporate all hands.
Yeah,
I think actually your very first shoot with the company might have been one where I did stills. Was, Evercruise.
That was I'm watching you like throughout it and stuff because I was like on the wide shot most of the time. But yeah, the all hands stuff.
I guess that's more of like a retreat than an all hands. Like if a company does like a quarterly all hands, there's maybe not as much to photograph.
I was gonna say we've done a Zenta all hands and like there's no
photographers there, but it's like an internal
I guess
event.
for the first one in like September and stuff like that made more sense because it was everybody coming together for the first time, like
traveling to come together.
Yeah.
So how does that kind of change the plans of when we're scoping for a project or storyboarding, coming up with shot lists? Like shot lists, how does that change what we're doing?
Yeah. I mean, I think we like to try to have people like in primary roles. So I think first and foremost, it's making sure that there's somebody assigned to it. But then it's thinking about outcomes, right? You mentioned like at a typical corporate all hands, there's things to photograph, but it's kind of like there's not a lot necessarily there in terms of like there's not a party going on. There's not people reuniting after they haven't seen each other for a long time. But at like a once a year retreat where a lot of people are remote, in the case of a company like Evertrue, people haven't seen, and that one was like their first one since COVID. It's like people haven't seen each other in years, and they're coming together and they're hugging and they're picking up swag that has the company brand on it, and all of the C-level people are going up on stage and speaking and interacting. And so like in the case of an event like that, it's working with the client ahead of time to say like, what's going to happen here? What's the vibe? And what are we looking to get out of this with photos? Which I think leads directly to your point of like, don't just do it to do it, but, what are we going to do with this after the event as well?
Yeah, I did photos for the Administrative Professionals Conference in Florida last year. And, obviously it was like conference photography, like while they were like in sessions and all that, but they also hosted a party at a nightclub afterwards, and they hadn't done that in a few years because of COVID. So that was a big point of like, let's show off the people having fun here. And that's going to be different from just kind of the conference photos that they're going to use on their website and stuff like that. But that kind of leads into my next question of you know, we've talked about this on webinars and stuff before. You don't want to just post an album of photos after you work an event or after you host an event. So what are some kind of creative ways that people can think about using the content that we capture for them?
Well, I think a way that like we decided to change things up, like I know this was going to be one of your points, was the stop motion photography and things like that. Like I think that was a super unique way to show off photography, and I know that was for like a media day, but like I think that's a different way rather than just posting again like a full album of things where it's just like, okay, scroll.
Yeah, people like to see pictures of themselves like at a conference or something, because you know we'll get those people that are like, oh, get me and my friend, like I'll pose for you, but
it's, you know, different way, like different shots call for different ways that like you can use them and things like that. But like I think a really good example that was like something that was interesting and new, because again, like the stop motion turned it into like a little stop motion video and stuff like that, like and I think photography in terms of no matter what you do is a lot like B-roll. It's just, again, it's a still. So I think depending on like what you capture, whether that's signage, a person, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize that. And say it is somebody with their friend and stuff like that, like looking at you, like you can use that as kind of like social graphics. Like we kind of did it for like Evertrue, even though it was just pictures of them.
Yeah.
Like, like the waveform graphics and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, stuff like that. Like it's still pictures, but you know, like using like social graphics and things like that. Like it's something new rather than just doing like a whole photo dump, which you know. But that's just like what I can think of off the top of my head for right now.
Yeah, I want to expand on what you said with like the waveform graphics, but can you explain what you did with the stop motion photographs for Emerson first?
Yeah, so I think when we were talking about, you know, planning what different ways we could kind of approach media days, because we've done a few now, we were thinking about creative ways to show new shots and new angles and stuff like that. So obviously we were getting the B-roll of like media day, like hype videos, like your classic hero shots. But I think I had seen a video on social of a sports team doing stop motion photos for like a pregame warm up, and I was like, that's cool because it's essentially like a video. It's almost like B-roll in itself, but it's a different way to show that same information, I guess. So we basically just set up a backdrop, a different station for our Emerson Media Day, and took pictures of players in action. So instead of just getting stationary headshots, we had a basketball player dribble the ball and then point to the camera. And then if you edit those pictures into a few seconds and really close together, it looks like continuous motion. So it was just kind of a different way. You know, we could have shot that as video, but it kind of created a different, edgier kind of feel.
Almost like that flip book feel, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And it just breaks things up and makes people say, oh, what is that? How'd they do that? And just looks different and cool. And the media day idea is, you know, something I think that we're seeing a lot of traction with all kinds of clients, not just athletics clients, because for a couple of reasons. I think it's a really efficient way to capture content. So you get people all in one room and you can, you know, knock a bunch of stuff out in a day. But also it's just an interesting way to like get stills that you can use for a whole bunch of different ways. So like what you just mentioned with those stop motion photos, we use those in a specific video, but like those can be used, you know, as standalone clips to promote those individual teams. And when you think about the point of a media day, traditionally for like a sports team or like a college athletics program, it's to get content that they're going to use as evergreen content throughout the course of the year. So it's to get a photo of, you know, a basketball player holding out the ball, and then next to them they'll put information of the next game is Thursday, you know, May 5th at this time, you know, against this opponent in this location. You can use that still as a jumping off point for a graphic. You can have the video of them spinning the ball on their finger, you know, to go up on the Jumbotron when they're doing player introductions. You have the little interviews to cut to make feature videos. So like the whole point of the media day for sports organizations is to say, we're going to get you together once at the start of the year, and we're going to have stuff that's going to allow us to support creation throughout the whole year. And you can do the same thing with non-sports organizations, and that's true with the photos you're creating as well. It's website content, it's social content, it's, you know, graphics. You know, I think you're going to get to this, but with JAF, it also was like we can have a whole team photo even without everybody having posed, in one location.
Right. It's kind of the whole concept of one shoot, multiple pieces of content that we drive home all the time. We had the JAF Media Day in here, like you were just talking about, and now they're able to refresh their whole website and not have everybody in the same room all at once, but still be able to edit together one team photo that they can use. And I've seen them use, their new headshots for happy birthday posts or like little call outs on social that they can, use as headshots on their website, but also use in social graphics. I know the pictures that we take with our client Diversified Communications, they have all sorts of conferences and they post their photos as graphics promoting next year. Or, it was just Administrative Professionals Day, so they just posted a photo with some like a color overlay and some information text on it, or add some motion, stuff like that. And that's kind of a more creative way than just posting, oh, here are a few shots from our event. You can show, oh, here are like, you can use them in different ways and repost them in different ways and kind of make content out of that.
Kind of speaking on like the promotional aspect of it, like I think it's like almost better and like kind of important that like when you get all these photos, that you don't get like, you don't post them or do something with all of them right away. Like I think, for instance, like Black Maternal Health, that was the first time they've done it in a while.
Yeah, so it was in person. It's the first time they've done it in person,
right.
I believe,
so
since
the first
COVID,
time they did it in person, like since COVID, which again was a while. But they want to do it again next year and stuff like that. So like it's better to like withhold some of the pictures so then they can advertise and promote using some like, this was the community that was there, this is what it looked like, this is what, through a picture, this is what it kind of felt like for everybody. So it's good to like, sporadically like layer out like those photos like in promotion for the next one, again with using graphics and being like, this is, so they have something to base off of compared to being on Zoom, because you can't do anything with that.
Yeah, it fills out your marketing calendar for the year, which is huge, and it creates a lot more content that you can use just after, the week after the event. You can use it leading up to the next event the next year, and it kind of gives you content to sprinkle in throughout.
You mentioned things like the audio waveforms, and that's definitely true, but it's also like at Administrative Professionals Conference or at Black Maternal Health, you have these kind of marquee speakers in the industry up on stage talking. You get super high quality photos of them. That's an opportunity to build quote graphics, right? And it's then tying that person to your brand, right? So if it's, for Administrative Professionals Conference, whoever it is, the speakers that they bring in are obviously people that are filling a room up. They're important to your audience. You take the most relevant quote from their presentation, whether you record it on video or not, and suddenly you have like a multimedia representation of that with a photo and a quote in your social feed and in emails and in everything else without too much work. And that's just a way to extend like the life and the thought leadership that happens at these conferences too. And I think that's something that often goes like pretty overlooked at these, is like, oh, we have these photos of people on stage, like, oh, that's just, it is what it is. Well, they had enough draw to bring people into a room and people sat there and listened to them. Like, this is obviously someone your audience cares about, or at least you think so because you put them on stage. Mm-hmm. So like extend the life of that with like, take their stills and either use it to promote another conference or use it to just say like, this, remember this person's associated with us, or promote the ideas that your organization cares about by tying that to things that they said at the conference. So like, that's something I think that people often don't think about that they can do with stills from an event like that. And similarly with like a company retreat, it's great for recruiting purposes. If you think about like LinkedIn, it's like, I want to see that the company that I'm potentially applying for a job for, that people like each other and that they seem to have fun and that they're doing fun events and that they're getting together. And like, you can also do like, use those as like little mini profiles, right? If you get a nice picture of somebody from your company and you want to do a feature about like, oh, this random person from marketing that maybe we didn't, we don't spend the time with to do a full, sit down interview with. Oh, okay. Well, we have a photo of them and we can do a little write up about them on LinkedIn as kind of like a employee feature that not only makes them feel good, but also serves as a recruiting tool. So just another way that you can kind of repurpose some of that stuff. In addition to just hey, here's a link to the whole album. See how many people click through to view all 200 photos.
And sprinkling pictures of smiles throughout your website is not a bad idea either.
Never a bad idea.
Oh, look, these people like this place and like working here. And like
especially at a conference too.
Yes, exactly.
If you're smiling at a conference, you're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, thank you both for joining me today for this podcast. If you need any photo or video needs, check us out at 5toolproductions.com, and we will see you next time on the Create Smarter podcast.